Heyo everybody, Haku here with this week's HaQ&A, and we have HaQ&A 82. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this one. I love having the HaQ&As back weekly. It's been really good. This one's probably going to be a bit shorter because I feel like we have less discussion going on. I didn't have as huge a backlog of comments to draw from. And also, I'm not doing a big, huge discussion that took up like half the video last time, like I did with the main character topic last time. If I have a topic like that I really want to talk about, I'll do that in future Q&As. Or if any of you have anything to suggest, you can always bring it up in the comments, message me here, on Twitter, on Patreon, on Discord. Just talk to me wherever. I always try to make myself as free and available to talk to anyone as often as I possibly can. And speaking of the Patreon, to do these patron shoutouts, I'm not sure who exactly. I'll have to ask one of my patrons who they are here on YouTube before I give my shout out to them or anything. But as long as I don't use people's names that I haven't already used in videos, I think people will be cool with it. I don't know, but shoutouts are good for patrons. So far, I'm just going to bring up Shadow Lugia and Andrea Zapita. Thank you to both of you for becoming new patrons. And if you want to help support the channel on Patreon, link will be in the description and probably the comments too. But these patrons, one of them has gotten back to me with their suggestion for the videos that I'm going to be covering on Sundays, and I'm still waiting on answers for the other two. Once we get more, I'm going to do it in a poll format. I'm going to let everybody come into a thread and give suggestions, and I'll put those suggestions in a poll, and whatever gets voted will be what we cover on Sundays. But for now, since there's only a couple of us, I've just decided to go to each of them and talk it out and try to find something everybody can agree on. So I'll be trying to figure that out as soon as possible, and then we'll have a new series coming up on the channel on Sundays. So yeah, big thank you to them, and if you want to, again, put your suggestions in and be a part of all that, and just be a part of helping support the channel. Like I said, links to the Patreon will be down there, and just even getting to the basic $15, like the smallest $15 a month goal that I have would be huge for keeping the channel going. So yeah, but either way, even if you're not helping on Patreon, just anything, watching the videos, talking as part of the community, it's amazing. Anything you do is really great and helpful for keeping everything going, you know? So either way, getting past that, I wanted to update you there because something new is going to be showing up on Sundays. And then to talk about The Promised Neverland. This is another thing I wanted to do real quick. I'm one video away from catching up. So once I catch up, new videos of that'll be on Fridays with the Jump videos, like Boku no Hero Academia and One Piece. And I'll be using that empty Wednesday slot in order to talk about, in order to do videos on series that I've fallen behind on the channel, like the one whose title I always forget, with Lorem and Gospel, the Mama Mazuku one, or 12 Beast is one that people have really been telling me to catch back up on. So Wednesdays will be the day for that, to catch back up on stuff I'm behind on. And at least for this week though, this video is probably not showing up until Friday, but I'm kind of cool with it being a day late this week, because there's no Jump this Friday, I don't think. They're taking off for Obon Festival. I think that means that no scanlations this week, but next week's scanlations might be out kind of early, because that happens a lot when Jump takes a week off. So even Wednesday, or possibly even before that, you could see the next videos for Boku no Hero Academia and One Piece. So I'm not sure how that's going yet, but I'm pretty sure this is the week where we're not going to be seeing scanlations for those. So yeah, is there anything else? I think that's all I wanted to discuss. I wanted to say there was the new Patreon series coming up on Sunday, that the Promised Neverland's going to be moving to Fridays once I'm caught up in a week, and then on Wednesdays I'll be catching up to some series I'm behind on. So yeah, for this video though, I've got a bit to discuss for Beastars, then quite a lot to discuss for Tower of God, and just one comment to discuss for Accelerator, Toaru Kagaku no Accelerator. So it's going to be kind of on the shorter side in that sense this week. So yeah, let's get into discussing those. I'm going to do Beastars first. Alright, first up for Beastars, we got 5 comments, and the first 3 are from Andrea Zapita, who is one of the patrons I gave a shout out to before, and they did what I do a lot, is where I like get a few weeks or so behind on people's videos, then marathon through them. So I could tell because like they were starting to hit comments on all my videos for Beastars. But the first one from them that I got here is I don't know if I dislike Lewis's fiance or not. She's just weird, but maybe she'll grow on me eventually. I like her already. We've only seen her once, really, but I think she's an interesting character, and I'd like to learn more about her. I think it'd be cool for more development there. Andrea Zapita also said, I'm not a big fan of their ship, talking about Juno and Lewis, but it was hinted for a long time, so yeah. And that's same. I don't think it's out of nowhere. I can't say, oh, it's not well written. No, we've seen hints for Lewis and Juno's ship for a long time. I'm just not a huge fan of it. I don't think it works well with their stories, with Juno's story and Lewis's story independently, and I don't like it when paired with Lugosi and Haru's story, because Lugosi and Haru have had such a dramatic story of trying to mentally work through their relationship and how it works in society and all that. And all this growth and change that Lugosi's had to go through and had to struggle with, making it less unique by saying, oh, these other 2 main characters are going to get together and be in an interspecies relationship now too, just kind of takes away from Lugosi and Haru's story a little bit, I think. So I don't think it's out of nowhere with the way it's written, but I'm not a huge fan of it. And then thirdly, Andrea Zapita said, maybe a training arc for Juno. I was also expecting Lugosi to just get her a porno mag of deer men to see if she'd find them attractive or if it's just hunger for her prey. I think that would have been so funny. That would have been so great. Like, if Lugosi put the Gohin technique to work, it would have been so good. I would have liked it a lot. Or if Gohin came back into the story as part of this. Either way, I really think that would have been great. Daniel Minagiti said, Holger's freaking amazing, having a delayed conversation. I love Holger, especially I just read chapter 140 before recording this. I actually really, really like Holger a lot. And lastly, Troll Film Production said, this manga has literally 0 uninteresting chapters. Agreed. Itagaki's always doing something. Every single chapter, something is important that delves into the world society or really deep into a character's thoughts and actions, and every single new chapter just makes me think more and more Beastars is the best manga out right now. Like, every single new chapter, I'm just like, oh my god, Beastars is the best. There is nothing week to week, whether it's The Promised Neverland, which I love, One Piece, which I love, Boku no Hero Academia, which I love. There is nothing that is just bringing amazing chapters week after week after week like Beastars is. Nothing is keeping up with Beastars right now, in my opinion. But yeah, those are just the quick little discussion for the 5 that I have. Next up, we got a lot to talk about with Tower of God. We got a lot going on here that I wanted to discuss, and I was expecting a lot of this to be about the anime being announced. There's a little bit to talk about here with the anime being announced, but mostly it's actually from the past chapter and a little bit of holdover stuff from the chapter before that, because really there's a lot to talk about with these chapters. These chapters have kind of brought up a lot of interesting things, and in my opinion they've sort of been bringing us back up out of a little bit of dip. I think, like, the way that season 3 has gone, I think the first few chapters of season 3 to me were really, really good, and then as we started getting into the cage stuff, it seemed like the quality dipped a little bit. But these past like 3-4 weeks or so, it feels like it's been slowly building itself back up and just getting better and better, to the point where I think this most recent chapter, 438 from when I'm recording this, is probably the best chapter since they've got to the cage. Just in strict terms of the way it was written, definitely the best, I think. But either way, let's get into the first set of comments. And a few of these are going to be sets of comments because they sort of set the stage for the topic of discussion. But to start out, Akash Panda said, as a question, do you think the method of giving Doom's power to the canine people could be blood fusion itself? Also, I think the Elders don't really care much about strength alone when choosing Slayers. I mean, they seem hella strong themselves. I think it's more so they want the Slayers to be a certain type of people. Even if they get rid of Bomb or Yama now, they'd only lose power temporarily. They can always find somebody better down the line in the future. It's not like they're running out of time. And Slayer nominee added to that, I'd like to know that too, but they say blood fusion's born by mixing strong bloodlines together to create something new. It could all just be a tale created by FUG or Yama, and this is how their Mad Dog Warriors are actually made. I'm in agreement for the most part too about the Elders having incredible strength of their own. Some of the Elders seem worried about what Bomb's doing, which is causing a disturbance and pushing things toward a battle with Caliban. It makes sense on their part. They have a military strength for sure that they've slowly been gathering followers to increase that strength, but Bomb is potentially a threat to that by wasting their resources on a fight with Caliban. Their focus is on Zahard, not one of his commanders. Getting rid of a thorn in their side and a Slayer might decrease their strength in the short run, but, like you said, they can wait for others. They can bide their time. Sacrificing an irregular, though, that can kill Zahard seems like a high price. And Akash Panda lastly added in, I agree, FUG may have spread lies about the blood fusion to hide the existence of Doom. Maybe the Zahard Empire would have had Doom killed if they'd known. I didn't think of the FUG resources bombs wasting, you're right. And I totally love this, because it kind of, before this, I was thinking of Elders as sort of being beneath Slayers, because Slayers are supposedly treated like gods, but discussions like this have made it make a lot more sense that it's more along the lines of, I'll kind of get into this in future comments and future topics, like right now in this video, but at least for right now, I'm sort of shifting perspective to the Elders and Slayers are both strong, but they are both strong and different. But I'll get into what I mean with that at a topic a little later. But on the topic of this blood fusion and Elders potentially taking out Bomb, because I was saying it seems like way too big of a sort of loss to be wanting to get rid of Bomb and Yama, but again, my opinion's kind of been changed on this because of the way I've sort of shifted thinking on Elders. But starting off to talk about the blood fusion, if that is the blood fusion, the canine power being given to other stuff, it wouldn't be blood fusion as what was previously explained in the series. But there's always a possibility, though, that Yama and his brothers are the ones created using blood fusion. But the only problem with that being the case is that Yama says he doesn't know where they came from, but that means whoever gave the explanation of the blood fusion would have to know where they came from. But again, I will get into that in the next comment. There is one possible explanation for that. So yeah, even if that was blood fusion, it wouldn't... Yama and his brothers who may be the ones created with blood fusion, but if it would still be kind of a retcon if CU tried to say that the canine power being given stuff was blood fusion, because that wouldn't be the same thing as was explained before. But either way, that's a little beside the point. But as for the Elders, I do think it's a great point to bring up that Bomb is actually wasting their resources and upsetting their current structure. So to them, like we've seen so far with other characters saying it, like Yama saying it, Jinsung's kind of on his own, and they kind of view it as his own fault that he got captured. I would think that Jinsung is like so rare that he's an incredibly valuable piece to have that you would want to rescue him. You wouldn't want to let him go. But really, the only ones pushing for his rescue right now seem to be Bomb and Karaka, and Bomb and Karaka are doing it for personal reasons. So it would make sense that FUG isn't into them acting on their own personal reasons in such a big, obvious way, using so many of their precious resources that FUG's been building up. And the only problem, though, with that argument I still see, though, is that Bomb especially, but the others too, but Bomb especially seems incredibly rare for them to, like, be doing away with him. It seems like it'd be a waste to get rid of him. But, I mean, there's an argument either way. Bomb is being a nuisance to them, and on the other hand, it seems like a waste to get rid of him. So it might just be one of those things where between a rock and a hard place, some make different decisions. And then as for Yama, it makes a lot more sense, because FUG always wanted Doom instead anyway. Like, Yama's stronger than Doom, but Doom provides like a logistical benefit of creating mind-controlled soldiers that Yama can't provide. So if they have to choose between one or the other, I could get where they would see Doom as more valuable to them anyway. So it makes sense that the Elder would be like, okay, we can do away with Yama and bring in Doom. That actually does make total sense. And in a related comment, I've always read this name as I'm gay as heck, because I always thought it was one of those things like Seymour Butts, where it's like a name meant to make you say something stupid. I've always read it as I'm gay as heck, and maybe I'm in the wrong here. Maybe their name is legitimately Imgayashek, and if it is Imgayashek, I am so sorry that I've been reading your name like that this entire time. But either way, in a very related comment, they said, "We're currently in the cage, which is Yama's personal playground. The Bay Road shit still happens where Deng Deng was kept. Yama said they don't know who their parents are. I think that's because they're the products of blood fusion. They just knew they were stronger." See, I like that this brings up the possible explanation of the blood fusion stuff, being that Yama and his brothers are the product of the blood fusion. But I think if we got an explanation of Yama's origins to explain that, that would definitely be okay. But I think that what we're seeing right now with the cage and with the fighting pits we saw before definitely is not the Bay Road as it was previously established. So that's definitely something that's been kind of retconned. Even if this is technically the Bay Road, it is not what it was previously established in the story to be. And even then, here's with what I was saying in the comment before that I would get into. The problem with saying that, okay, Yama and his brothers are, the problem with saying that Yama and his brothers are the ones that were created by blood fusion, the conundrum you run into there story-wise is that whoever was explaining in the workshop battle would have to know more about Yama's origins than Yama himself, because Yama said that they didn't know where they came from. Yama could be lying, but I don't think he is. I think there is a way to totally explain this without any plot holes or retcons, and the way that it could be explained is Chang, essentially. So, I don't remember who it was explaining the blood fusion stuff, but it might have been Chang doing the one that was explaining it. And if it was Chang as the one who's explaining it, there could be a reasoning behind it without any plot holes and retcons. And that's if Paul, after he was exiled or whatever, Paul found out what Yama doesn't know about their past. So Paul knows about their past even though Yama doesn't. And Paul, since Chang was part of his group, told Chang. So that's the possibility that Yama and his brothers being created with blood fusion could still be a realistic thing with no plot holing or retcon, is if Chang was the one who explained it and Paul told Chang because Paul knows and Yama doesn't. So there is a possible way to explain it. There is. I don't know if it will be explained that way, but there is a possibility of explaining it and making it make total sense. Next up, Lord of Dragon 555 says, "I really like what they did with Yama here. I just wanted to throw this in to just bring up how much I love Yama's character development and how much I really do think he's enjoyable. I think at the beginning of this arc, the character he seemed like he was going to be totally isn't the character he is, and I think that's great. Give us this false expectation, and then have him wake up, have us see this sort of conflicted, somber personality of his, and I don't know, his character is just very nuanced and interesting. I like it a lot. So yeah, Yama's character, from like people that are criticizing Tower of God right now, people who really like everything going on in Tower of God right now, everybody seems to agree on, pretty much everybody likes Yama. So I do think Yama's very interesting, or at the very least they find Yama very interesting. But next up, Slayer Nominee says, it would, and this is talking about a few reviews ago, I said that I wasn't sure if Tower of God, as much as I like it now, I wasn't sure if it could be even better on a week-to-week basis if chapters were, instead of jumping around between different stuff, if each chapter just focused on a specific thing. Like we would have a chapter focusing on the Bomb and Karaka stuff, then a chapter focusing on the Dooms group stuff, the group that's there, and then maybe a chapter that was doing the Evankel and Kelhelm stuff. I was thinking, I can't really tell, but this, just setting some context, this is what this comment was in response to. But Slayer Nominee said, it would be nice if CU did devote an entire chapter to certain parts of the story rather than jumping around, but I think he does it to give the feeling that these events are happening at the same time. I like the idea of things not happening at the same time. It makes what happens in the story more unpredictable. I really don't know how I feel about Evankel going for a slip and slide down the arrows path. It's probably the most cartoonish thing CU's done, which seems a little out of place, but I'm all for odd techniques. It helps break up the serious tone of the overall story. And for me, it's a situation where I really don't know which way would be better, because personally, I say it all the time, I enjoy jumping around to various different scenes and stories within one chapter. I really enjoy that happening. So what's going on, the way Tower of God's currently written, where we jump around to a bunch of different characters, I like that. I generally really like that in any kind of story, whether it's even a TV show or a comic or book or anything. I love when we jump around to different scenes a lot. But I'm also just left to wonder to myself after reading stuff like Beastars, where every chapter seems to have a specific focus and specific point it's trying to get across. It makes me wonder if Tower of God could be even better if every chapter had a specific point it was trying to get across, a specific purpose to it, rather than just seeing a little bit of this scene, a little bit of this scene to carry on and push the story forward, which is similar in a lot of ways to how a story like One Piece is more written, where it's not necessarily that single chapters have a point they're getting across, but rather that single chapters are just bits and pieces that push the overall story forward. So it's just two different ways of writing a similar thing. But yeah, also, the Kelhelm Zero stuff. I agree that it's a bit silly and odd, but I think more weird and interesting abilities could be a good thing. Just like I am interested to see how Jordan's power works out some more. I'm all in for like weird, interesting abilities, because some of my favorite series, like say Hunter x Hunter, have weird and interesting abilities. But I also hope Kelhelm has an elemental power. I hope that the arrow thing isn't the Ancient's power, because I think the Ancient's power needs to be a straight-up elemental ability, or else it kind of takes away a little bit from the previously established lore. Like, with Evankel isn't like, let me think. Evankel isn't like Quattro or Yeon, who are using like flame elemental Shinsu, or Shinsu that takes the attribute of flame. Evankel is literally using flame as a base, pure elemental ability, sort of like Rak is using stones as a base, pure elemental ability. It's not that he is making stone elemental Shinsu, it's that he is controlling stone itself. It's not that Evankel is making fiery Shinsu, it's that they're controlling fire itself. So I think that the lore established by the Ancient's power being a straight up elemental, like an elemental affinity, is something that should be kept the way it is. So I'm hoping that Kelhelm does have some sort of elemental affinity, and his ability for arrows is just another extra thing he has in addition to the elemental affinity. But next up, JGG says, what a chapter, talking about the most recent one, what a chapter, great usage of timing, taking a major event to give an update on the arc map. We need more of this. And I totally agree. I loved it. I loved everything they said, from the creative use of a sense of perspective on from the creative use of time in jumping around a little bit, to giving us a sense of perspective on where things are taking place. Now we know where Ship's group was, where Doom's group was, where Death Lady and Grande were in the middle, and now we know that we have two other points out there away from that sort of line of 3 points, where Yama's fighting the Elder's Envoy, and where Bam and Karaka and Jordan have left to go towards Doom's group. It gives us just this sense of space, this sense of perspective that's really, really cool. And yeah, because of all that, I think that 438 was really the most creative and well organized that a chapter has been, maybe in all of season 3, but at least since we got to the cage. I think it was really creative and well organized. Next up, a few more comments. Akash Panda says, I think the Elders are way more powerful and outrank the Slayers. Who do you think appoints Slayers? I think the only reason the Elders don't become Slayers themselves is because they're not special. They can't take out Zahard and the 10 family heads. Other than that, I think they're more powerful than Slayers. And Piyush said the top dude in FUG is Grace Merche Luzlek, and he's the first Slayer, and considering Slayers are considered gods, they outrank Elders, so his statement isn't false. Talking about me saying that Slayers should probably outrank Elders. But Akash Panda says, they're a god to the FUG members, but to the upper echelon, the Slayer's just a position. Hence, the Slayer isn't hence a Slayer's appointed by the Elders and can be removed by them as well. They wouldn't dare to do it if they didn't outrank the Slayers, or if they actually viewed the Slayers as gods. And that's a good point, because we see Elders doing this. And see, I'm not going to go too all in on it, because I think we don't have a canon explanation of what Elders actually do. So until we do get a canon explanation of what Elders actually do, we're left to kind of guess and assume from what we've seen so far, which hasn't been too much, with Kelhelm, and what we've heard of other Elders and their plans. But since Slayers are, like, this is talking about how my opinion on Elders and such has changed. Since Slayers are treated as gods, I always viewed them as leaders. I was like, okay, they're treated as gods, they must be the leaders, like Grace Merche Luzlek. But when you think about it, I've also always said that I think that the Slayers are selected based on an ability to break the rules, based on an ability to kill the 10 family heads and Zahard, or else they couldn't be Slayers, quite literally. So if they're selected based on those special qualities that allowed them to kill the 10 family heads, they're not really being selected on any organizational skills or leadership experience. So with that being the case, you're probably going to have some Slayers that aren't good at being leaders at all. But you're probably also going to have Slayers like Grace Merche Luzlek, or like what we've seen from Karaka, that take it upon themselves to be leaders too. So it may very well be the case that while Slayers are kind of a very, very important member of the group, and sort of a mascot to be as a god to the lower members of the group, the Elders are the ones that are more in the organizational or leadership positions. So it could totally be that. So, and like you said, it's obviously totally possible that Elders can be just as strong, if not stronger, than Slayers, and just like they can potentially be stronger than Slayers, and just not have whatever special thing it is that allows them to kill the immortals. Like Karaka has whatever this power of Zahard is, or Bam has being an irregular, or Yama has whatever special thing that he and his brothers came from that made them extremely powerful and gave them the transformation abilities. So there is all of that. Anything more that I'm forgetting here? So yeah, basically we don't have enough evidence canon in the story to say for sure, but that's kind of just where my thoughts on Slayers and Elders lie for right now. Next up, the next two comments are about the anime. First up, Jacopo Rivas, maybe? Or is it Jacobo? I think it's Jacobo, usually, is how that's pronounced, but I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Jacopo Rivas said, I wish an anime of Tower, or I wish with an anime of Tower of God being made, the studio has to be David Productions. Captain Crunch says, I don't think so, honestly. They have too much on their plate at the moment with Fire Force, JoJo's, and now in the show they're making for Netflix. They'd be crazy ideal, but I just don't think they have the time. Same is true with Bones. I'd be okay with Production IG since they have amazing animation and would be able to make a great production. Cinema Citrus would also be amazing as well too. Maybe Ufotable, but I won't count on it since they focus on one show at a time. Trigger and Sunrise are up there as well, and studios I can see working with Tower of God. There's even a new studio founded by the lead creators for the first Fully Cooley called Durian as a wild card. And I'm Gay as Heck says, I want Bones to do it. They're the ones that do Mob Psycho 100. So some of my thoughts on that, some of my thoughts on some of the studios they brought up, and some of my own studio thoughts. I would love for it to be any of those options, honestly, especially Bones or David Production. I think they're two that could make an amazing Tower of God anime, but I highly doubt either one will be involved in. Though they're the two best, in my opinion, for this type of series, I think, to be adapted, I don't want to set my hopes too high when it comes to that. I think especially the way that Bones has adapted My Hero Academia, if Tower of God was given sort of a similar paced adaptation, it would be amazing. But yeah, I don't want to set my hopes too high. And Trigger is one of my favorite studios, but I think they would never do Tower of God because Trigger does pretty much exclusively original work. They barely ever make anything based on anything. Like specifically like a direct adaptation, they pretty much never do that. So I doubt they would. I think one studio that's maybe more likely impossible that would do an amazing job would be Mappa. Mappa just recently did the Dororo anime, and before that they had done which was it, Garo Vanishing Line. They've had a ton of other great anime lately too. They did the anime adaptations for the Shingeki no Bahamut series. I think Mappa's one that's way more possible to do Tower of God, and also one that I think would do a great job. I really like Mappa's anime. But adapting manhwa or webtoons for a TV series is kind of on the newer side of things. So since it's kind of on the newer side of things, it's a bit of a risk, and we might not see many huge studios that we're super familiar with. We might see a newer studio or a studio we're more unfamiliar with. So while I would love for it to be Bones or David, or while any of those other ones would be good, I think maybe not. It's not quite the time yet to set our hopes too high. And similarly, Mayu said, I'm so excited. I can't wait for the anime adaptation of Tower of God. I'm really excited to see the anime character designs at some point, and I hope it gets done by a good studio. Ufotable would be my dream come true, seeing how well they've handled Kimetsu no Yaiba. So, for me, I'm definitely hoping for the best studio-wise, but this also made me think. I'm happy it's getting an anime in general, all of that. I'm so excited to see Volume 1 in anime form, but I think the biggest thing to me, more than the animation quality. So of course Bones or David or any of those would have great animation quality, but I think more important to me than animation quality is the pacing. I think the pacing is going to be a lot more important. I don't think the animation quality could make or break a Tower of God anime because of what's going on. I think they could have just sort of like 7 out of 10 animation that would still be like really good. They don't need to have amazing animation for Tower of God's story. Would I love it? Yes, but they don't need it. But I think they might need the pacing. I think the pacing, where the animation wouldn't necessarily be make or break, I think the pacing for Tower of God's anime would totally be make or break. Like what I'm the most scared of for the anime, I think, is I don't want them to rush through the Volume 1 material. I want them to take their time with it. If they rush through it, that could be a breaking point for the anime. So that's where I'm at with that. I think what could make or break much more than animation quality would be pacing. And lastly, for this week, Alpha Cent 007 says, regarding Doom, we really don't know what his transformation does, like the limits of it. He's not like the others, he's the original. So it may be premature to say that it's less believable he survived to a spear to the head. And that's totally true. I just think that generally the way it was presented, getting a hole through the head typically kills somebody instantly. So I think a better way to portray him just being able to take a really harsh shot and get back up and be scary and stuff without being maybe too over the top is, instead of a hole through the head, he maybe just took the spear to the chest or something. I just think that I can't say it doesn't make sense because, I mean, truth be told, we really don't know anything at all about how transformations work to begin with. So I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense, because it does make sense, because he could just use his transformation abilities. He's kind of some sort of eldritch horror, really. So I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying that I don't think it was the best way to have presented it. I think that it maybe could have been handled a little bit better. So that's my thing. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying, or that it's not believable. I'm just saying that the way it was presented wasn't the best way it could have been handled, and it could have been done a little bit better. Which I don't think is really too huge of a thing to say about it. But that's it for Tower of God this week. Now, last up to end the video, we got one comment from Toaru Kagaku no Accelerator I wanted to throw in, and Way to Light and Darkness says, it would be cool if Hasami used pyrokinesis power, but then again, espers can't use magic and magicians can't use esper powers due to the different set of rules. And yeah, that's true. I mean, technically she's dead, so if anybody can break the rules, it might be the dead person. But I also think that you're totally right, because she has magic and the rules that are set for magic reanimating her, keeping her corpse in this sort of necromancy state. So if she did use her esper powers, it might break the magic keeping her alive to begin with. Or, yeah, either way. It could go either way. It's like either her using esper powers, the magic blowback would destroy the magic that's keeping her reincarnated, or the magic would hurt her body like it does to Tsuchimikado, but even if it hurt her body, she's dead anyway, so she'd be fine. So it's like you can kind of make the argument either way, but still, totally makes sense why she could potentially not be able to use them. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the HaQ&A this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like if you did like the video. Comment down there to tell me what you thought of this week's HaQ&A, what you thought of any of these topics, anything you want to add to the discussion. So like, comment, subscribe for more of all this, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel, or talk to you there. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord, then just ask and I can give you a link. And if you want to help support the channel on Patreon, like I said before, then just look in the description or the comments, and there will be a link there, because it would just help out a freaking ton. So either way, even if you don't, I hope I'm not pushing this too hard, like, oh, you need to do it. No, as long as you're enjoying the videos, that's all that matters. That's seriously all that matters. But yeah, if you just want to help out and help keep things going, then supporting on Patreon would be the way to do it, I guess. So yeah, that's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.